Okay, so I had this dream the other day. Um, my sister and I, we were at an airport and there were tons of people there. We were just walking, and then out of nowhere, she was gone. And it was like I was lost. Like I couldn't figure out where I was, where she was. So I just kept walking through the airport, and then I walked out these
Who
back
were you with?
doors. I was with
Sister.
my sister.
Your sister. Okay.
Your
Yeah,
sister's name?
Raven.
Oh yeah, Raven.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was with Raven. So we walk out of the airport. Well, I walk out of the airport in the back. And when I walk out the back, it's like I'm in the Midwest area. Like it's all desert land. And I start walking and it gets dark. And so I start panicking, like I'm afraid and I'm nervous because I don't know where I'm at and it's dark and I'm afraid of the dark. And so I just keep walking, and then I see these lights coming towards me. So I know that I'm getting close to a road. So I start running down this hill with my phone in my hand, and I have my flashlight on, and I'm waving my flashlight at the vehicles that are coming by until I get down to the very edge of the road. And once I get to the edge of the road, this semi with no trailer on the back slows down, and he kind of comes to a stop, and I ask him if he can give me a ride, and he starts going, like he starts waving his hands. He's like, "No, like I don't do that. Like I can't give you a ride." So then he takes off, and then there's a blue like 1970s, maybe 1960s style muscle car, and it pulls up, and there's three men in the car, and they all have like really short dark hair, kind of scruffy. There's two men in the front seat and one man in the back seat. And I asked them if they can give me a ride. And so the driver opens up his door. It's a two-door car. He opens it up and he pushes his seat forward so I could get in. So I get in, and once I get in, probably not even a minute later, we drive past a gas station, and the gas station is really busy. And I had this thought in my head, if I would have just kept walking, I could have made it to the gas station. I had this really bad feeling that I was not in good company. So we kept driving, and then we got to the destination, and it was like a an old building that was situated in between two power plants. And the on this old building, you could tell that it was old and run down because there was a graphic like a clown, and it looked like a 1970s style art, and then it said children's bowling on the side. And as soon as we park right in front of it, they get out of the car, and I jump out of the car and I start booking it to the road, and there's vehicles coming, and I'm screaming for help, like I'm asking them to help me, and they just keep staring at me. The guys come running after me, they grab me, they start pulling me back, they tell the cars to keep going, that I'm their crazy sister, and then they pull me inside. Time moves forward because all of a sudden I am with my sister again, as if I had escaped. And I told her everything that had happened, and I told her that I was able to escape. And Raven said to me, and then I told her, I said, they've got children locked up in this place. And my sister said to me, she said, you need to go back and you need to rescue those children. And I said, okay. So I went back and I apologized to the guy. I told him I was sorry for leaving, that I made a mistake, that I wanted to come back. And he said, okay, well, if you come back, then I need you to do a job for me. And I knew what he was talking about. These people were like traffickers. Okay. So I knew that he was wanting me to go do something, but in a very big place. So I asked him, I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to go to the Creek Church. And I was like, the Creek Church? I said, okay. I said, but look at what I'm wearing. And I was wearing like a lace cardigan with a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And I was very dirty. Like I had dirt all over my clothes, all over my skin. And I said, look at what I'm wearing. I was like, I can't go to the Creek Church. I was like, next Sunday is Easter Sunday. I was like, I can't go there looking like this. And I said, I need to buy a dress. So he looked behind him, and the other two guys were arguing about something. And then he reached up on the shelf, grabbed $100 bill, handed it to me. He said, go buy a dress, then go to the Creek Church. And I said, okay. And I walked right out, and then I woke up.
Do you know where the place was?
The place that said children's bowling,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Do you know what town you were in? Do you recognize any landmarks, the gas station, the road, anything?
Nothing. It looked like I was in a totally new place, a place that I've never been, a place that I've never seen before. The only thing that was familiar to me was my sister and the Creek Church. There's actually a church right next to our church called the Creek Church.
Is it named is it named after the Indians, or is it a creek, that a body of water that runs by it?
I'm not sure. It's kind of like, it's not like a super huge church, but they've got like 3 or 4 campuses in Kentucky.
Hmm.
So, and they're more modern.
Okay. So is that where you attend, or you've just been there?
No, the church, that church is actually, to get to my church, you have to go down the road that church is setting on.
Hmm.
So whenever I go down that road, I always see that church, and then I take a right and I go to my church.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it's close by.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What do you got, Neil?
Well, the first thing I heard before you even said it was human trafficking. It's interesting that your sister's name is Raven and you're at an airport. She could have flown anyway without an
Yeah.
airplane. Yeah. So you're at an airport, which is a place of departure. It's a temporary place where you wait to go on a fairly large vehicle of destiny that takes you really far, but you're walking. So you're moving under your own power. And then your sister disappears. I think this is part where did you find out that she was actually abducted later on when you link up with her? You don't
No.
find out the reason why she disappeared?
Nope.
Okay. I have a feeling it might have something to do with that, but since it doesn't say, the fact that she disappeared is curious. It kind of sets up the stuff that goes on later on. So you walk out the back of the airport, right? So you're not going out the front where people normally exit. It's out the back. It's a place it's kind of the sneaky way to leave. And so you find yourself in a desert place, a dark desert place, kind of like Hotel California almost.
Yeah.
And you're in a place that you don't recognize. It's out in the middle of, basically it's middle USA in the middle of nowhere, and it's dark, and you're in a state that you shouldn't be in. And I don't mean, Missouri. I mean, you're panicking, you're anxious. The Lord says, be anxious for nothing, but you are. Like it or not, you are. So you're walking along and you see lights coming towards you. So it's like help might be on the way. Move towards the light. And it appears at first light that these people can help you. So you get down to the bottom of the hill and you're waving for a semi truck. It stops. At least it stops. But when you ask him for a ride, he says, no way. So this guy is of no help to you, even though he probably could have been a big help, big truck, big help, maybe. And he leaves, and so you're seeing other cars coming by, but the one car that stops is I love your description of the car, the blue muscle car. Blue and black muscle cars are really big in some of the dreams that we have, like in the 1970s, Hemi or just a giant V8. But even though it's a big car and it's beautiful, it's not what it seems. It's kind of like the bright and shiny object in the last dream. Seems like the guys are going to be helpful, but they're kind of nefarious. And so the two guys in the front are the driver and the passenger, but the guy in the back is kind of your bodyguard when you get in. And you don't have a good feeling of it, and rightfully so, because these guys are really not what they seem. They're human traffickers. Yeah. And you are, at this point, one of their prey. And unfortunately, you go past the gas station, a place of filling, where you could have gone yourself if you had just walked. So the discernment there, you have the discernment only in retrospect. You knew that you should have not taken a ride with these guys because they're going to take you for a ride. And so you stop at a old building between two power plants. That's an interesting symbol. I'm not. You look for anomalies, and that's just kind of bizarre because you generally don't have two power plants in the same place.
Yeah.
It's one. You know, to have two is kind of redundant. So the question is, what is it powering? But the clown graphic on the children's bowling building is clearly a symbol for pedophilia. Both the clown and children don't generally bowl by themselves. They don't have it, it's an adult game. Let's face it. This is a game that adults play with children.
Yeah.
And it's not a good game. So they start to grab you and pull you inside. And they said, you know, you're trying to escape and nobody around you is helping you. And this is kind of what pedophilia and human trafficking is in the United States. It happens right in front of us. People see it. They see the signs of it, but they choose to ignore it and don't do anything. Even though somebody's screaming, help me, help me, help me, you know, your handler says, she's my crazy sister, just walk the other way. And they do.
Yeah.
Nobody stops to help you. So you eventually somehow escape, or you just end up with your sister as if you had escaped.
Yeah.
And she said, is she the one who says you got to go back and save the children?
Yes.
I think this is a part of, this is kind of one of your destiny callings. I don't know what you're feeling and what you think God should have you do, but I think this is part of your destiny is to work in the human trafficking field. I don't know what part of it, you know, rescuing children, which there are a bunch of people that obviously do that, but there's some in the Christian world, and John can talk about one of the guys later on. And he needs to do a job for you, but where he wants to go, you to go is kind of curious. He wants you to go to a church.
Yeah.
You know, people are being snatched from our churches more than people will ever really care to admit. There are people within the churches who are doing pretty nefarious things with kids, and God's gonna judge them. God's gonna bring them to justice at some point. But I think you're gonna have a play in that if you choose to do that. And whenever God calls us to do stuff, you have a choice. You can either choose to go with the calling or not. I would suggest you do, because I think you have a heart. You probably have a heart for this. He didn't give you this dream for no reason. And, you know, you got to ask yourself, why did God give me this dream? And I think he's giving it to you because he wants you to do something. And I think he wants you to do something in the field of human trafficking. And so you go undercover, basically, you know, literally under a different dress. You're no longer, you buy a new dress and you're under a different cover. So in essence, kind of like a double agent. You're going in as if you're working for the bad guy, but you're really doing it a good thing in the church. You're exposing it.
Yeah.
So, so that's what I got out of this one. That's a cool dream. John, what did you get?
Well, I really thought it was interesting how your sister disappeared and then you found yourself in this place and then you're suddenly back together. It reminds me of a friend of mine who also works in spiritual intelligence, and he had a story about a lady who had a dream that she just suddenly ends up in like the back of a semi and she's bound, and she realizes as she looks around that she's being trafficked. And so in the dream, she feels her cell phone in her back pocket, pulls it out, and drops a pin as to her location. And the guy walking back and forth with like the AK-47 sees it and comes over and takes the butt of the gun and smashes it into her nose. And right then she wakes up. Well, the dream was so vivid, and her cell phone is on the nightstand next to her. She reaches over, she grabs the cell phone, she touches it to turn it on, and it's open in maps, and there's a pin that she had dropped. And so it's the idea of, did she get translated, transported? You know, what happened? I think it's one of those mysteries of God, but that was one of the reasons why I was asking you if you recognize the place, because I've had people talk about human trafficking dreams and then they realize they know what street, they know what building, they know the address, they know that there's never anybody at the building during the time of day doing business. And sometimes God is actually revealing places where human trafficking is happening.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to put anything on this church that you mentioned. But I think it's interesting that in the dream, he's showing you from the side of the traffickers that they want to send somebody that's not part of their ring, basically a victim, into another place to hunt for, more victims of human trafficking.
Yeah.
And that can be spiritual, it can be figurative, it can also be literal. I do agree with what Neil is saying. First of all, I used to work at power plants. So the idea of two power plants next to each other, you're right, it's very rare that that happens. But what that means is you're in a power position, you're in a powerful place, And so, the idea that you escape with no power of your own is almost like your sister disappearing. It's like you have a supernatural ability to be cloaked and to move in and out of these situations safely.
Wow.
Mm.
The decision that you make, like to go back, is super interesting because it shows the idea of the courage that you have, also the understanding of the calling and the destiny, and the idea of the protection that you know that you carry. Dreams a lot of times are like a sticky note as part of an ongoing conversation. So I would look for other dreams. First of all, if you're not writing your dreams down, write them all down.
I
But
am.
okay, good. Look for other
Raven.
dreams that have this theme about rescuing people, about disappearing, about being kidnapped, about being in strange places, and even certain locations, and see if God speaks to you now, or if God speaks to you more, or if he speaks to you more figuratively. And even look at small bodies of running water that would represent like a creek, and see if that location or that wording comes up in other dreams. This is the
That's
benefit
good.
of having a dream journal. Like I have my dream journal on my phone. I can literally search in notes for the word kidnap or creek or human trafficking or power. And I can find anything that has to do with that readily and be like, oh, yeah, I got 5 dreams about this. This is crazy.
That's good.
So, yeah, you definitely have, you're at a powerful position. You're protected. You have a call of God on your life, and you're fearless. So part of this is an identity and destiny dream. But it's also, I think it could be a level of commissioning for you if that resonates.
Yeah. I actually feel I have within the last actually couple of years I have wanted to get affiliated with some of the organizations in our area that actually handle those kinds of situations, and they help women who have been trafficked and children who have been trafficked. So I've I've been getting connected with them. It's just not been like something that's on my like top priority list just cuz I stay busy with a lot of different things. But
Mhm.
that's a huge passion of mine. So I feel like you guys hit the nail on the head.
I had a kind of a word of caution, maybe, since the church is specifically named the Creek Church. Um, I put this delicately. Pray for discernment as to how to deal with that church. Um, Consider who the leadership is, and maybe they may be involved in something that's more than church. And so I would caution going and talking to them directly.
Okay.
Pray for discernment for that, as to whether you should or should not, whether the Lord wants you to actually confront them that this is a place of danger, or if they're part of it, then it could put you in a slightly different position. But you're fearless, so God's going to
But
protect
that's what the dream showed too. You went back undercover.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You went back like with their
Yeah.
belief system, like, oh well, hey, I just, I don't know, blah blah blah. And so you were pretending that you were on their side, so You know, I'm not saying that this church may not be literal,
Right.
but and so this is no condemnation on this church or anybody that goes there. But if there is a church that you feel like God has highlighted and it doesn't go away, go join the nursery team, work in the kids ministry, and
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open.
see what happens. You know, only if you feel led to, but caution, and it already shows in the dream that, you know, harmless as a dove and wise as a serpent.
That's good.
Hmm.
Thank you,
And
guys.
fearful for bravery for days. So
Yeah.
good deal.
Go Blazing.